It's the same as last week.
Can you close that blind?
No. It is closed.
Okay, never mind.
Okay. Hi. Get that over there. On the phone. Okay, so good. Nobody's here yet. Okay. All right. So, hi, everybody. Hello. Welcome to On the Rocks Wednesdays with Jen and Tam.
Hello.
And we are back again to discuss. Last week we talked about toxic parenting, and we talked about what the real definition of toxic parenting is, and how we shouldn't label everything that we consider negative as toxic. There's a huge difference between negativity and toxicity.
Right.
So before we dive into today's topic, we got to do some housekeeping things. Don't forget that the 1,000th follower on Twitter, on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, you will win a $150 gift card from Visa. Okay, $150 free money to do with as you see fit. There are no strings attached. All you have to do is follow author V.S. Griffin on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook. That's it. You get a free $150 for being the 1,000th follower. Okay. Now, also, there is a new platform from Amazon called Kindle Vella. It is a new subscription reading service. Okay. And it's a bunch of short stories. Authors have come together to publish little short stories. The first 3 episodes of the stories are free to reel you in, of course, and then you have to purchase tokens to open up the rest of the stories. But it's an amazing platform. As always, we can expect great things from Amazon. So check it out. I am on there. I have some new material there. Feel free to check it out. Now, it's not for the kids, okay? Let's be clear. It's not for the kids, and it's not for the faint. It ain't for the churchy church people, okay? So if you wearing your big church hats on Sundays, you might not want to read this here material, because mine is entitled Inferno, and we're not talking about fire, okay? So that's your sneak peek. That's all I'm giving you. It's real hot, but not with any fire, okay? Okay. Now that we've addressed that, today's topic, we're going to reach into my book, Phoenix Rising, and we're going to address a couple of the characters and some of their behaviors, okay? So the character we're talking about today is Victoria. She's the main character. She's the heroine of the story. And in the story, at the point that we're going to dive into, this is where Victoria has buried her son. It's maybe 9 months later, 9 months to a year later. And she thinks that she's ready to move on. At the time of her son's death, she was engaged. She was living with her fiance and their child, and they were a whole family. And that's all she had known for her adult life. Okay, that's all she known. And so only a year, 9 months to a year after this tragedy of her life just being snatched out from under her. So she's no longer a mother physically, still one in spirit, but not physically. And her relationship is done with her high school sweetheart. Okay. And now she's like, oh, I'm over it. You know, she hasn't been to therapy. There's no therapy involved. She's like, I'm over it. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to find love. I'm ready. That's what she believes. Okay.
She believes.
And so she meets a guy. And while he may be a great guy, his name is Dominic. He may be a great guy, but Dominic has some flaws and some red flags that Miss Victoria done missed, because she's hiding and running from her pain. Okay. And so, she doesn't find out until it's too late that Dominic is really not the guy that she thought he was. He's a big time drug dealer, and she doesn't realize that he's a very shady character until she's sitting in jail with no bond in a whole other state by herself.
Right.
Literally alone.
Yes.
Because he gone. And he done left. He bonded out. Yeah. He done left her there. So she just
took the rap.
Well, she ain't take the rap, but she's sitting there until they figure out what's the goings on around here.
Okay, now tell the viewers why you selected that particular snippet and how that ties into our topic of parenting and moving forward in healthy coping skills.
Okay, so I picked that particular snippet because a lot of times, whether it's marriage breaking up, whether it's a long-term relationship, whether it is a toxic co-parenting situation, we tend to, and not by we, I don't mean just women, I mean male and female. We,
our culture,
people, period, tend to have this belief that to get over a person, you have to get under someone else or get with someone else, or however the old adage has been worded to you. For me personally, I was always told, to get over a man, you got to get under a new.
I heard that one. Yeah, I've heard that one too. And been there, done that.
Right. And learn from experience. That's not a healthy healing from a transitional thing.
No.
I know from personal experience, because I have lost a child and I buried a child. And I know that a lot of what happened? Oh, okay. A lot of the time I spent with healing or learning to heal. You might have to close it out. With healing and learning to heal, I did it all wrong. And I did it all wrong. I did not go to therapy. Not that it was too late by the time that I went, but I had piled on more and more damage.
Yeah.
And by the time I went, I was basically an imploded bomb. Like I had imploded within myself. And so I was just toxic to everything and everyone, including myself. And nobody knows this, but I had attempted suicide. And so truth moment. But that's what finally prompted me to realize that I literally had a problem, because I was not the type of person, like I was always judgmental towards people that had attempted or committed suicide, because I felt like you're weak when you do that. And so it took me having to actually go through that episode to realize that a person that gets to that point in life, you're not weak. You've literally hit rock bottom. For me, it took the loss of my child and not knowing what to do with myself. You know what I mean? And it's like, we aren't raised in a culture of people that believe in alternative solutions.
Right.
We come from a culture of, pray about it.
Yeah.
And that's a good thing. No shade. It's a good thing.
No.
But prayer and something. There has to be prayer and therapy. Prayer and, if medicine is needed. If prayer and I don't think it can just be, or we can just continue to say, pray about it, God is going to fix it. Because let's be clear, and not going to be too churchy for y'all today, but if even in the Bible, when God made miracles happen, yeah, they prayed, but they still had to actually do something.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Right. And well, if we're going off of scriptural beliefs, then the Bible tells us that faith without works is dead.
Bingo.
And so when you pray, we're told to pray in faith. And so it all ties in together. And so you're right. We are raised in a culture that is stigmatized by a lot of stereotypes.
Right.
And mental health is just not one of those. It's such a taboo subject across the board,
Right.
but definitely within the Black community, mental health is not addressed.
Right.
So when you look at how a lot of people cope with death, or how people cope with circumstantial changes, you know,
right.
just saying
divorce
or something that is completely out of their
job
loss. I mean, something as simple as hell is not having food, enough food to feed your kids. I mean, anything that's circumstantial that causes you to feel like, hey, there's no out.
Right.
We resort to what? Drugs, alcohol, sex is a big one. And now suicide has become it's definitely more prominent.
Absolutely.
Within the Black community. I mean,
prominent period. I think the rates have gone way up.
It is prominent period, but you're seeing it a lot more in the Black culture.
Right.
And like you said, we didn't hear a lot
murder suicide.
Yeah, we didn't hear about a lot of Black people killing themselves.
Or murder suicide.
Right. So that a lot of that is becoming more known in the Black community, and you have to look at where these stigmas come from and start addressing those stigmas there.
Absolutely.
So as you're talking about, the part in your book, well, Victoria, she's lost her son. She goes on this. I mean, it's
just a downward spiral.
The sad part is self-destructive behavior.
She doesn't even realize it.
She doesn't realize it.
I think a lot of times we don't realize it because we're so busy running from the problem, and we're so busy trying to hide it from others that we're putting on this disguise. Hey, I'm okay.
But the thing is, and this is where I want to go, because Victoria in the book, she has some very close people to her.
True.
She has people who are going through this with her.
Right.
But not one time does anybody say, hey, do you need to talk to somebody?
But she's also hiding it.
I mean, but how do you hide the grief?
Okay.
How do you hide?
I know for me personally,
of losing a child, and I know we're talking hypothetically, based on the novel.
Well, we can step out of the hypothetical real quick. I know for me, in real life, when I lost my son, I didn't cry in front of anybody, not even my mama, and. Not because and don't take this the wrong way. Don't misinterpret this. Not because my mama would have, like, oh, what you crying? None of that. I didn't want her to cry.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
Everybody's watching me, waiting for me to break, to be there for me. And I'm not wanting to put me on anybody else. I don't want to burden anybody else with what I'm dealing with, because at that time, outside of my mother and outside of the relatives that were there, the people that I considered in my immediate circle, my friends, I was shunned. I was ostracized.
Why do you think that's the case?
Well, years later, I had one person tell me that we all had kids the same age. Nobody wants to think about that when you have a child that age. Nobody wants to face that that's an actual reality. You know what I mean? We like to live in a bubble.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Especially when it comes to our children.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants to think that this could possibly come to happen to my child. And if it does happen to somebody, it's like, oh, I don't want to be too close to this because what if? So like it's the cooties or something. It's gonna rub off on you.
So are you okay with sharing maybe not the in-depth details, but just how you lost a kid? Because for somebody that doesn't know you, saying, I lost a child or I buried a child, and of course we're talking about the whole idea of toxic parenting.
Right.
You know, from someone that doesn't know you, that know your story or whatever, it could look like a case of negligence.
No, well, I can say this: it was definitely not negligence, and it wasn't, anybody's fault,
right?
Per se, like not a individual person. The nature of the situation, there was a ensuing lawsuit and legalities, and so there were non-disclosure forms,
right. So
signed. So I can't go into specifics, but it was not a case of negligence. It was not a case of toxic parenting. That child was well loved,
right?
You know what I mean? By both sides, by my side and me, and by his father and his father's side,
right?
It was like he was like the golden child. Everybody, he was in rotation,
right. Like. Right. And so
if we didn't have him, my mama had him. If my mama didn't have him, his dad's mom had him, or his aunt. Like, he was just a light, just a bubble of sunshine, and everybody wanted him around.
Right.
So it was a devastating loss to all involved. And like, now I will say it got really toxic between me and his dad after the fact, because he was pointing fingers at me, I'm pointing fingers at him. We both feel like neither was there for each other. And it was just, it got really ugly. Really, really ugly.
And that's usually, that's usually the case. Just a moment. That's usually the case.
Right. When it's a situation like that, because people don't know how to handle grief, period, first and foremost. And then when we do
hold on, we have some technical
difficulties. I know this is we need a crew.
Okay, you're gonna have to fix that.
Work on it later. But when we do grieve, it's like,
hold on now.
When we do grieve, it's like a situation where it's just, I'll hold it. Screw it. It's a situation where it's like nobody wants to really deal with the situation at hand. You know what I'm saying? Like, nobody wants to talk about this baby that was here today and gone tomorrow, and it's really nobody you can point the finger at. Because anytime somebody dies, what helps us to the first step of healing is that we find some kind of way to place blame somewhere. Whether it's cancer, or whether it was, a gunshot, or whether it was whatever. You know what I'm saying? We find something. It's like, okay, this is the source. I can now face this head on. But when it's a situation where you don't have anyone to blame, no accountability, it's just here today, gone tomorrow. That's a tough pill to swallow.
Right. And so this is a really sensitive subject, and we just want to be okay with triggers.
Right.
Well, we want to acknowledge that there are some triggers,
triggering material,
with this particular broadcast. And so, we have to be okay with opening up and talking about this type of, these type of things, because it's happening more often.
Every day.
It's happening more often, and more so. I mean, I don't even know where to begin, because there's a stigma with mental health. There's so much, so many standards that are being placed on us as parents. Our youth are being exposed to more and more things that they've never been exposed to. They're seeing things that they've never seen before. And, there's this, this amounting, surrounding pressure to be somebody that you're not, to live this life that's really not accurately portraying your reality. And so when you start getting into the nitty-gritty of that, it does take a toll on that. And so thank you for sharing what you just shared. And so I had an experience maybe about 2 weeks ago, and a friend of mine, she shared some news with me, and it involved losing a baby. And so, she shared with me the details, and I was just incomplete. She just I went and she said, I got some bad news. And so initially, like when I walked in the door, I'm like, what's wrong? Because I'm an empath, so I pick up on everybody's emotions and feelings.
Right.
And so I said, well, what's wrong? And she said, well, the baby died, in so many words. It's not my story, but I just want to.
Right.
And so, instantly my mind goes to, well, what happened? And so when we look at these things, and so she shared some things with the child's mother, and she showed me some things, and they were very disturbing.
Right.
And I just was like, I was just in disbelief, And so we have to really learn how to be open about our hurt. A lot of times,
Absolutely.
like you said, when we go through things, and I believe this particular young lady that I'm speaking of, I think she has like a fatherhood wound from in. It could be any number of things, but
right.
her choice to respond to her hurt was to pretty much drop the kid off with the father, and she went on about her life, living her life, her best life.
Gotcha.
And so she wasn't even around when the infant
tragedy
when the tragedy happened. And so when it comes to like dealing with hurt, we need to get comfortable about, and we just went all off the book.
Well, no, I was finna bring it right on back, because here's the thing. I think that part of the beginning, or one of the first steps into getting to a healthy healing, and not just this toxic healing or this counterproductive healing that we're typically doing. And I can't really, counterproductive healing is kind of an oxymoron, because it's really not healing. All we're doing is piling on the hurt.
Well, I like to say I think the first step, a bandage over a bullet wound.
Right. The first step, I believe, is you have to acknowledge that you're hurt. You have to acknowledge it. That's the first thing. Like, that's a constant across any type of thing, whether it's Alcoholics Anonymous, Drugs Anonymous, whatever. You have to first acknowledge that you are hurting. Yeah. And that was the thing that was the toughest for me, was acknowledging that I am hurting. Mm-hmm. Because to me, it was so ingrained to me that hurt is weakness, that I didn't know how to differentiate between a quote unquote friend saying something ugly to me hurt and this hurt. I lumped it all in one bucket. Hurt was hurt, and I'm not supposed to do it, and I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to acknowledge this because I don't hurt. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, hurt is like a natural emotion. Even as a child, when you stub your toe, or
right.
Hurt. I mean, it's there. It's how you allow it to filter. It's how you allow it to filter through you.
Right.
And so I'm grateful that I've never had to go through a tragedy of losing a child, or even a loved one. I lost my grandmother last year, and that was the closest person to me.
Right.
So I can't say I understand, or I know what you're going through. I can't say those
right
things. But as you said, being able to communicate that hurt is the most important thing. And I think we have this warped idea of what it means to communicate the hurt, and communicating the hurt doesn't always necessarily mean I'm telling you, hey, I'm hurt.
Absolutely.
I'm hurt.
Absolutely.
And so I think when you have a bond with somebody, like I said, I walked into the room and I'm like, okay, something's wrong. What's going on?
Right.
And she didn't even immediately open up to me, and she was just, no, I'm okay. And then she later said, well, I got some bad news.
Right.
And I was like, I knew something was wrong.
Right.
And so even with you and I have been friends for over 20 plus years. Mm-hmm. I was away when you experienced your tragedy, and I'm sorry about that, But even what?
You can't apologize for that. You was in the service. Uncle Sam is not concerned about your friends and their losses. Like, he don't care.
well, but I care.
Right.
And so, and so to just see how you, see what you went through and how you came back. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you.
And I think it's a very humbling experience too for anybody that knows the story and what you went through and the challenges that you overcame to bounce back to be who you are today. I think you're a very strong, independent young woman, and I think you are a fantastic mom. And and just it is a struggle. Oh gosh, it is a struggle. But to go back to what we were talking about, it's not necessarily just communicating, hey, I'm hurt, or physically sitting down talking to somebody. Sometimes you just, sometimes you just cry, And
here's the thing, another thing, and this is probably going to be very controversial because everybody, this is the new way, therapy. Back then, and this was 2004, 2005, 2004 or 5. Therapy is expensive. Then, now post pandemic ish for some of those.
Well,
there are more avenues. And there are more free avenues. You have to go through a lot, but there are more free avenues than what was available then. You know what I'm saying? And then this is going to be another controversial thing. Therapy is not for everybody.
Well,
and I say that because some people like me, where I am today, I needed therapy then, but where I am today, I'm the type of person, just give me my space. You know what I mean? Let me process it. And now I don't know if that's because I've been given the tools or if that's my new default. I'm not sure yet, but I don't want to talk because I've gotten to a point in life where if we're not talking about a solution, I don't want to talk about it.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
I got you. So I'm going to play devil's advocate because I believe therapy is for everybody.
Okay.
Because there are different types of therapy.
True.
And you're talking to somebody that's been in mental health counseling and therapy for 6 years.
Okay.
And I've gone through dialectical behavior therapy because I was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder.
Okay.
And so if you don't know what that is, look it up because I'm not going to go into it.
Right.
Borderline personality disorder. And so there's a specific type of therapy that you go through to deal with that particular diagnosis.
Okay.
And then more recently, I've been in cognitive behavioral therapy, which is, a therapy that teaches you how to respond to negative situations and trauma-related brain conditionings. And then you have general therapy where you sit down and you lay on somebody's couch and you just talk.
Okay.
And then there's play therapy for children who can't readily express themselves. So you have therapists who are trained to look for certain things based on behavior and body movement and things. So you don't always have to talk about your problem. If you're saying, okay, well, hey, I'm in therapy for this. I've done group therapy where we just were given we might start off with a mindfulness activity, and then I'm
familiar with group.
So we'll do a group exercise, and you share according to, what you're comfortable sharing.
Right.
So I will, be the devil's advocate and say, I do believe therapy needs to be more advocated for. I'm an advocate for therapy.
Well, I do advocate it. Let me make that clear. I do advocate therapy. Even though I say it's not for everybody, I still advocate it because I know that more times than not, there's a therapist that can help, those people. Right. But I also know that in some instances, there are people that are just flat out determined that they're going to function how they're going to function. You know what I'm saying?
Well, it's a learned behavior because you have to look at where we come from.
True.
What goes on in this house stays in this house. You don't talk about the problems. Meanwhile, hell is breaking loose all around
Uncle
you.
Larry's still messing with Sheila.
Hell is breaking loose, and those you may not feel like
Uncle Larry.
girl, stop. You may feel like everything is under control,
right?
But I pay attention to behaviors, and
Right.
and I go back to that. Okay, so those behaviors are going to come out.
Absolutely.
That hurt is going to fester in one way or another. You're going to have it, it's going to come out in promiscuity. It's going to come out in drug use. It's going to come out in alcohol abuse. Right. It's going to show itself. And then you're looking at, like, we had, and I'll share a personal experience real quick.
Okay.
So I had a cousin who, she was an alcoholic.
Okay.
And she passed away a couple years ago, but she was an alcoholic, and everybody's like, she's an alcoholic. And I kept saying, why are you treating her for alcoholism? You need to treat her for trauma. I said, that is trauma.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if y'all go back far enough, you can almost pinpoint where this became a problem for her. It was a death of a family member.
Okay.
But nobody, because of our little tiny brains and our judgments, we didn't, the family did not associate the loss of this person in her life to her alcoholism. Yeah. And so they're trying to treat her for alcoholism. I said, you need to go back and treat the actual problem, because alcoholism, that's a subsidiary to the problem.
Right.
And so And so when we look at behaviors in how people cope with something, we're so quick to judge, well, oh, this person is a drug addict, or this person, is boy crazy, whatever. But I'm like, okay, what's causing those causing those reactions from that person? Why is this person acting out in this manner?
And it's not, and here's the thing, because I don't want anybody to misunderstand. It's not saying that everybody that's promiscuous has an underlying problem. That's not what I'm saying. Yeah. I don't think so.
I think so.
I don't.
I think so.
Because some people are just free spirits, to be honest.
Well, okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, if we're going back to like the hippies and the free, it kind of reminds me.
Hippies still exist.
Well, I know. Do you remember the character Lynn on Girlfriends?
Yeah,
how she was, okay, so but Lynn has some issues. I'm sorry.
She did, but I don't think it was connected to her. I don't think the two were connected. Like, yes, she had issues, but I would attribute her issues more to her permanently wanting to be a student than her sex life.
So let's move on.
Right. Okay. But here, okay, so to reel it in, I know that when I initially tried to call myself healing, healing for me before, this was improper healing. Mm-hmm. Healing for me was, I'm going to get out the house. I'm going to get away from all these people that are reminding me of what has just happened to me. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to hang out with friends and, give me just breathe. Okay. Right. And so it was the night of my son's funeral, after everyone had, because after the funeral, it's over for everybody else.
Yeah.
It's over for everybody else, but it's just beginning for...
It's a lifetime.
Right.
A lifetime.
That's when it starts for me or the person. That's when it starts for you, because now the work is done. You don't have nothing else to distract you. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So I said, okay. So I went with a platonic male friend, and we went out, went to dinner, all this good stuff, and I started drinking. Now, I have a high tolerance for alcohol. Okay. Mm-hmm. Everybody that's partied with me knows this, because I drank a few people under the table. Had to pack a few people home and babysit. But at least if you get to go with me, I got your back. I ain't gonna just leave you hanging or nothing like that. But this particular night, I was so just, everything had caught up with me. Mm-hmm. I had formed a drug habit. I was addicted to drink by this time. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure we're all from Houston. Everybody knows what drink is. I don't have to go into details about that. Okay. Mm-hmm. 713 day was just yesterday. We know what this is. Anyway, so I had an addiction to drink at this time. And this particular day, like, it had been like maybe a couple of days. So mm-hmm. I'm thinking, okay, that's not working. Nothing's working, because I'm still not sleeping. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm thinking it has no effect on me whatsoever. So this particular night, we at dinner, we drinking. It's a bunch of people, so we just tossing them back, and everything went, just all came running together. By the time of the end of the night, and so I woke up. The last thing I remember is vomiting on my feet and ruining a very expensive pair of shoes. But that's the last thing I remember before I remember waking up to being raped. Wow. So, and I say this because one thing I want us to stop doing, because mind you, now keep in mind, it wasn't the protect the woman atmosphere. I was the person who was supposed to be looking out for me. When I returned to her home, she put me out. Because if I'm gonna be a hoe, I ain't gonna be a hoe at her house. So, it wasn't this whole protect her and, I stand with her and Me Too movement. Back then it was all, oh, well, if you wouldn't have done this, or if you wouldn't have been dressed like this, or if you wouldn't have had that much to drink, or if you blah, 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 so forth and so on. And so I say that to say that while I don't blame myself, because at the end of the day, it's that person's character. What type of person are you that a person has to be the equivalent of a dead person? Like you just, I'm not cooperating. I'm incoherent and passed out. So it's like you might as well be. What's that? Where people sleep with dead bodies? What do they call? What's that fetish?
I know what you're talking about.
But that's the equivalent of that, in my opinion.
Right.
So you're the sicko, and I don't care whoever. Like, if you sit up here and you sleep with somebody in that condition, whether male or female, you are a sicko. Period.
Right.
Because I need participation, active. I need you. Yeah. But anyway. But
and not to make light of the subject.
No, but my point was this. I will say that for me, it made me not be so trusting as far as friends and not throw that label around all willy-nilly. Because I was quick to say that for anybody that had been in my life for any elongated period of time. So if you've been around for longer than 2 years, you are my friend. And now now in life, it's like time has absolutely nothing to do with giving the title of friendship to somebody. Now, do I regret having the thought process of I need a safe space, I need air to breathe, I need to be out from under the smothering? No, because if I had to go back and do it all over again, I would still have this. I do need to be out from under the smothering, because by this time, my mommy was smothering me, which love her to death, but watching me like a hawk and want me right here up under you, that's not helping, mama. Right. You know what I mean? Let me breathe. I need to breathe. I need to, I'm one of those people, like, just give me a minute. She had chaperones. It was hard for me to get out the house. Like, I had to literally wait for people to fall asleep. And they fell asleep on my bed watching me. Because my mama had these people in place. She was like, watch her. Don't nobody leave her alone. And so I think that a lot of times we just need to make sure when we're seeking our healing that don't be worried about being ashamed or worrying about what somebody gonna say, that sort of thing. Don't feel like you're a burden. Don't feel like you're a burden. That's the main thing. And don't feel like you have to keep it to yourself, because you don't. You know, and it's nothing to be ashamed about.
Right.
Whether it's a divorce, whether it's a death, whether you lost your job, because some people, their career is their life. You know, if you've been there for any length of period of time and you've worked your way up, whatever the case may be, or you started your own business and it started thriving and then it fell off, like, or even with parents, and even if it's not a job, you know, a child lost, even if it's your child is now a teenager and you don't know who this person is living in your house, you know, it's like, this not my baby. Who are you?
Right.
You know, that's an adjustment. You know, that's a traumatic thing, especially for mothers with sons, because it's like, whoa, you know, this was my baby. He was opening doors. I had raised the perfect gentleman. And now I have this nutty buddy who's choosing violence every day. But it's just a matter of, don't be ashamed, because I think a lot of times we buy into the social media hype where everything is A-okay. Everybody's A-okay. Everybody's winning. Nobody's taking L's. Nobody is, you know, hurting. Nobody's suffering. Nobody, you know. There was a post today from a guy that, you know, he literally wrote down his new normal, you know, currently. And he was just like, this is the L that I took and we need to normalize this. And for once I chimed in. Like, you're absolutely right. We do need to normalize being normal. We take L's in life. We have losses. You know, that's a part of this journey called life.
Yeah. And, you know, I can speak to that because I kind of live my life in transparency. And you told me this the other day. You were like, you're just, what did you tell me? You said you're nonconformist.
You are. You always have been.
And I had to thought about it. I had to think about it because I'm like, you know, I just don't go.
I called you a hippie in high school.
I don't know if I was a hippie, but I was something.
Flower child.
I was definitely something. I was something.
You was a flower child because you were always so happy. You were always so bubbly, and you were always so giving and so warm. Even when we, you know, came to meet each other, and you were just so warm and welcoming. I'm like, what's wrong with her?
No, I mean,
she's friendly to me.
No,
oh, she doing drugs. What?
No, I just, you know, because of where I come from, you know, I come from a very abusive home,
right.
And I don't know if I knew it at an early age, but I was just like, you know, I just want to treat people the way that they are, and I learned, as you know, as I got older, that this is my truth. You know, I want to be transparent, and you know, I'm not one to live my life where everything is peaches and cream,
right.
Because you know, and you know me, if I have an issue, you know, I talk about mental health all the time.
Absolutely.
I talk about, you know, things that go wrong in my life. I mean,
yes.
going through a divorce right now for the second time, you know, and I was kind of embarrassed to talk about that. But
why,
because I'm like, okay, it's the second time. And I'm like, you know, people are going to start thinking that, you know, there's something wrong with me. But I'm like, you know what? Girl. The reality, and I had an epiphany. And
they ain't pointing fingers at Kim Kardashian.
You better stop. We really need no lawsuits from Kim. We ain't got that kind of money. But no, I had to, you know, and I said, you know what? To hell with what people think about
Absolutely.
You, because it's what you think about yourself. If somebody is making you feel less than, if somebody is
Absolutely.
not, you know, valuing you or can appreciate your worth, then then what type of person are you to even allow this to continue? So
thank you.
And so that was a part of my healing. A part of my healing has been to always talk about my truth, to be transparent and say, hey, it's okay to get it wrong.
Absolutely.
You know, even in the classroom when I'm teaching my students, I always start off with, hey, who got it wrong?
Right.
Who got it wrong? And, you know, you got the kids that are kind of hesitant to raise their hand. But I'm like, it's okay, because if you know, life,
if you get it wrong, you will get it right.
Life is about learning. Absolutely. Life is about learning. And so when you can learn your truth and appreciate your truth, your healing becomes, I'm not going to say easier, your healing becomes
less
acceptable. You know, you are more open to the challenge of healing, because it's not going to occur. You're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days. Some days I'm on top of the world. Some days I can't stand myself and I can't get out of bed.
Absolutely.
And it's okay, because the thing is, you need to be okay with being who you are and
Right.
not feeling like you have to present yourself in a manner that is not you.
Right.
And I think social media and social standards have changed to the point where we feel like, oh, if our life isn't perfect, if we're not posting this pretty
Right.
selfie every day,
Right.
or we're not driving this particular car, or we don't live in
Right.
this particular, then we're not good enough. No, you are good enough whether you drive a
Absolutely.
Pinto or
Right.
or Benz or
whatever.
or Maserati or whatever. You are
Right.
good enough, because when you appreciate yourself for who you are and you learn to love yourself, that's when you have true wholesome healing.
So
And
here's my thing. Here's my truth. After therapy, because I did go, and after therapy, I dated myself.
mhm,
Literally dated myself, not at home.
I'm expensive.
Not. I mean, girl, you.
I date myself, and I'm pretty expensive.
Listen, I was sitting up here wondering why I didn't have more of the people that were dating me. You know how most the new trend is, you know, if a guy spends over a certain amount of money, you got to give up the goods, right?
No.
Well, that's what I see on social media. I've never experienced that. I ain't never. But I was wondering. I was like, now why didn't more try to sleep with me? Because child, I'm trying to sleep with me after these dates. Because I'm sitting up here like, girl, they was paying what?
Yeah.
I'm like, do I really want to date me?
Yeah, you know, and
but seriously, I did. I started dating me, and not in my house, secluded in the dark. I dated me out loud in public. Like I would go to a fancy restaurant by myself and sit there and eat, not at the bar, not get it to go. I would dress up for a date because I'm dating myself. And I know it's gonna be some people looking at me crazy, but I'm telling you, it's cathartic. It's therapeutic when you can get up and get dressed. And I mean, dress yourself up like somebody else is taking you out, and you can go to the movies or you can go eat dinner. The hardest thing for me, I didn't have a problem going to the movies. I didn't have a problem like the little coffee places or stuff like that. My hardest thing was dinner. That I would get dressed and I'm like, I'm going. And I'll punk out. Every time. I think I did it like 4-5 times. I was like, I'm going. Nope, didn't go. So one year, I think it was one of my birthdays that I actually went through with it. I was like, I'm gonna do it. It's my birthday. I'm going. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do it. I got dressed, makeup, flawless, all this good stuff. I made the reservation. I'm going through with it. And I did. And my best friend surprised me. She was supposed to be out of town, but she showed up, you know, like after, and the picture she posted was me looking at my phone like, they look like me, you know, like walking by. She took a picture of me walking past her, going into the restaurant.
Because you didn't know she was going to be there.
I had no idea.
Okay.
But I was so proud of myself. And from that moment forward, I've been able to go to anywhere and do anything. Like anybody can go to the spa by themselves because, you know,
it's the spa.
Yeah. Anybody can go to the movies. You and the dog. Anybody can go to Starbucks because that's the environment. You know, well, it used to be pre-pandemic. That's the environment. You know, you go sit in your little corner with your paper or whatever it is you're doing, your Wi-Fi, working on whatever with your coffee. But actually going out in public and being confident and secure enough to say, you know what, I deserve this, whether somebody else is doing it or whether I'm doing it for myself. And another thing, especially for us women, you kind of realize your work and what you can command when you do get back to dating whomever. You know what I mean? When you get back to dating other people, it's like, well, I can say steak 48 because I take me to steak 48. You know what I mean? So how you gonna treat me less than how I treat me?
Well, you know what, and I'm gonna chime in here. I think at this point it goes to the point of self-love, you know.
Absolutely.
When you learn who you are, when you learn what you like, because let me tell you this, part of the toxic cycle is allowing ourselves to become what other people want us to be.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
And so when we get to the point of breaking toxic cycles and learning to heal, part of healing is understanding who you are.
Yes.
Knowing who you are, knowing what you like, apart from, being someone's mom, apart from being a wife, apart from being, a girlfriend, whatever, but understanding who an employee, a CEO, whatever.
Right.
You got to take those titles off and you have to strip yourself down, and look at who you are and figure out who you are. And I think that's where I am now. I've been married. August will actually be 9 years.
Okay.
And so I had planned this whole, a whole vacation, and I was like, I'm turning 40. I'm going to take myself on a 7-day cruise. And the initial plan was to go by myself.
Right.
And so I ended up getting my daughter on the cruise because she asked to go and whatever. But I say all this to say is like, once you know who you are, you become comfortable with being by yourself. And that
how did you find who you are? Like me, I took a long, hard look naked in the mirror.
Well, again, I've been in therapy for 6 years.
Okay.
And so
it was just through the therapy process.
It was through the therapy and really figuring out what I was dealing with, who I had become. And once I started taking off all of these false personas, I was able to kind of see who I was. And, really and truly, I was just, this little girl who was seeking something that I had never received.
Aww.
And so I started giving those things to myself. And when I started giving those things to myself, I learned to appreciate myself, because it's like, you deserve these things.
Absolutely.
And not necessarily, it's not even financial. It's just like, I just deserve to be loved. I deserve to be treated with respect. I deserve, if I want a red crayon, give me the red crayon. Don't give me the blue crayon.
Right.
And so that's how I started to figure out who I was. And that's how I became comfortable with being transparent and talking about my hurt and talking about my challenges and talking about my breakthroughs and celebrating my breakthroughs.
Absolutely.
And so people are like, now, I went.
And no matter how small or minute you think your breakthrough is, celebrate it. Like regardless, if it's I lost 2 pounds, girl, you better celebrate, throw yourself a parade.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because if you're not your biggest cheerleader, nobody else will be.
Well, and then
even if there are others, you should still be your biggest cheerleader.
And that's the point that I'm making. It's like, okay, when you're comfortable with who you are, it no longer matters what other people say or think about you. People are going to be negative. And so what I like to say is I believe in the law of attraction.
Right.
And so I said this last week, the energy that you put out is the energy that you're going to attract.
Right.
So we as women, we're like, oh, I want, we have this idea of the type of man that we want to attract to our lives or whatever. But then I had to look myself again. I go back to, okay, well, who am I if this is what, this is what I'm allowing to happen to me? So when you start, eliminating and setting boundaries and really allowing yourself to go through that, it's a very painful process. I will say that.
Absolutely.
It's a very painful process because you have
and whoever keep lying to people, telling people, oh, it's a breakthrough. It's a breath of fresh air. Stop lying to people. It is not.
It is a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, at the end, after all the hurt, because you have to live. I know with me, when I stood in front of that mirror naked as the day I was born, and I looked at me, because you look in a mirror long enough, you start to see past the physical. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And when I looked at me and I looked and I hurt and I saw me for me, and I had to acknowledge these insecurities that I've been hiding from myself and these scars and all this damage and all this other stuff that I've been like, oh, I ain't worried about that.
Well, I mean, the hurt goes beyond the physical. Right. The hurt is more, it goes spiritual, and it goes deeper than that.
Absolutely.
I don't know what's deeper than your spirit, but it goes deeper than that. And so, once you get to the point of where you're ready to uproot those things,
right,
really, and it's kind of like, I can use the analogy of like a wound.
Yes.
You can clean a wound, throw a little alcohol on it, put a Band-Aid on it. Well, if it gets infected, you have to reopen that wound, and you have to go in there and get the infection out and clean it out properly. And so that's the same way you have to treat healing. You have to really allow yourself to open up, and and get to the root cause of what's causing this. And a lot of my stuff, a lot of my own inflictions have been from childhood trauma,
right?
Things that I wasn't allowed to talk about, and I'm no longer ashamed to talk about those things. And I thought about something on my way over here, and I was like, that was some toxic parenting. I had an epiphany driving here, and I'm like, you know what? I can't believe they put me through that. I just can't believe it. But anyways, I'm not gonna go there. And so I think that's why I'm able to go back to being that free spirit that I always was, because that's genuinely who I am.
Yes,
I love to help people.
Yes.
I mean, if you have a problem, I'm ready to help you solve it. If you need the shirt off my back, hey, I'm gonna walk around naked for you. That's who I am. And
that is genuinely who you are.
When I tell people, if you need anything, call me. I'm not that person that's gonna flake on you.
No, like you ain't gotta tell me. You talking to the woman who you came to me to get your nails done,
and
ended up having to pack me.
Move.
You ended up having to help me move.
No questions asked.
Right. It was like, and I didn't. The people was like, "Oh, you have to move this and relocate this by such time today," and she just started packing.
I'm like, "Oh, hey, you have to try it in a way." Okay, no problem. Okay, but and I was always that person, but when I was going through my challenges, my mental health challenges, and trying to figure out who I was, it was harder for me to be there for people.
Well, absolutely.
And and then I just realized, okay, I'm a better person when I'm free and I'm not weighed down, and I don't expect anything in return. And so I think a lot of reasons why a lot of people what's the word I'm looking for? They go back or they revert. They revert in their healing is because, well, they're not being honest with this. They're not being completely honest with themselves. And I say, like a drug addict, they may relapse or whatever and go back to that lifestyle because they didn't actually deal with the hurt, And like I say, you may be feeling good today, but tomorrow it's not gonna be, tomorrow it's gonna be, how you feeling good and on top of the world today, but then tomorrow when those feelings come back, how do you deal with it? Do you go back and go back to smoking dope or drinking a bottle or whatever?
You have to deal with the skeletons in the closet.
And one thing that my therapist told me, he said, sometimes you just gotta learn to sit with that emotion. You just have to sit with it and don't try to fix it. Don't try to figure it out. Don't try to, figure out, hey, what this is. Just sit with it. Because it's only going to last for so long before you realize, okay, I got to get up and keep living. And that's my thing. That
was my breakthrough.
That was my thing with my kids. Because I have 4 kids. I've gone through challenges with my kids and everything. Right. But my thing is, when I walk out that room, no matter how I feel, it's business as usual. It's business as usual because you gotta keep living.
Absolutely.
The day you stop growing is the day you die. You're gonna be growing, you're gonna be learning till the day you die. And a part of your learning and a part of your healing is to allow yourself to open up and get down to the root cause. I don't speak a lot about my husband, but I would tell him, I'm like, until you get to the root cause of your problems, I don't care how much liquor you drink, I don't care how much money you make, I don't care how much money you spend. You will never be truly happy with yourself until you figure out who you are. Absolutely. And that's where I am in my life now, going through that stage where I'm figuring out who I am, eliminating the things that add no value to my life. And that's the thing, we want to hold on to things, we want to hold on to people,
but you can't do that.
You can't.
And so in closing, I wanted to just reiterate a lot that you said and mentioned, that, talk to someone, whether professional, paraprofessional. If you have to work your way up to the professional and start off with, your bestie or the pastor or whomever is your safe place. you know, whomever you have as a person, you know, and don't go, you know, trying to shuck and jive. Just go to them candidly. Hey, look, I need to unload this. It's not a, you know, I need advice kind of moment. I need to unpack this. You know what I mean? Be honest. Always be honest. Be, you know, clarify the issue. And then that way you can kind of begin your healing process. Don't do the toxic things like Victoria in the book, or like I've done, or like Sam has done. Don't get under somebody, you know, don't trying to get over somebody, you know, don't just jump into another career if your previous career has ended, you know, don't start, you know,
it just takes time.
It just take the time. Take it, you know, process it. Take all the time you need, you know, because we're not machines. We're not machines, and we need to stop behaving like it. And anybody that tries to push you to act like a machine, you need to push them away. So don't forget, we will be back here next week. Same bat time, same bat station. On the rocks, unfiltered, with Jen and Tam. Don't forget, $150. $150. 4 winners, 1,000 follower. $1,150. Everybody need $150. I know you do. I do. I wish I could win.
That's 2 tanks
like
for me.
I'm trying to tell you, if I could follow myself, I would. But I can't. So you need to do it. Win the money, because I'm trying to give it away. Let me bless you.
Are you just giving it to me?
That's cheating, Tam.
Oh, okay.
You just gonna tell folks no.
Well,
No.
I'm not. I mean, if they don't want to subscribe for free money, I mean, I'm just saying. I'm
you know what?
Right,
I probably need to put a time frame on this.
I'm right here.
You know what?
I'm right here.
We're gonna revisit that.
Tell me, hey, all I got to do is push a button.
Just push the button
to win $1,000. Hey,
okay.
Push win $150.
Not $1,000. Tam. Don't do that. Don't do it, because I ain't got that. I ain't got it.
You got it.
No.
In Jesus' name.
Hashundo. So see y'all next week. It's been a blast. On the rock.